Erev Shabbos, Parshas Bamidbar, right before Tshuva'S, and blessing the new month. The month of Sivan, the month where we all gathered as one camp. If we were all in camp together, those are the good old days. We had a youth in those days, not like ours has been robbed by these monsters, these monstrous devices. Welcome. So I was just kidding around about how we used to have a childhood. I have fond memories of childhood. Now the poor kids, all they can remember is imagine taking Donkey Kong with you wherever you went forevermore. That's what our kids are suffering. It's not everything that they're going to want is going to be good for them. So parents, hence the invention of parents. There's a familiar term called Eifen HaMiskabel. It has to be something that could be acceptable. You can't talk the whole thing in Hebrew. No one's going to understand what you're talking about, especially if you're going to not use the proper modern style. It sounds to them completely archaic, like going back in time to Shakespeare or Juliet or something like that. So you're given a task to do something pretty radical, tell people that the sky is falling, literally the sky is falling. The heavens are saying, we're coming down to earth whether you like it or not. It's going to be a rocky ride if you're not in sync with the flow. If there's a lot of traffic when you're going through the halls in high school, there's a lot of traffic. You got to either blend with the traffic and deke out the raindrops, or go with the flow. Go in the right position, make one-way hallways. So we're given a task to tell the world that we're about to have a revolution of mind, of experience. The whole world's going to be enlightened. I've tried to figure out what it is. Is it miracles? Is it psychedelics? Or what is it that changes people? It's a pretty obscure... Usually it says... it has the Rebbe's approach is of personal transformation. There's no other way. If the Rebbe finished off every Sikha with the words, and Mashiach will fly us out in the clouds of glory to Yerushalayim or Kadesh and go to the base of Mikdash, that was the closing blessing. Welcome. The entire hour-long, 5-hour-long talk is about how you transform yourself. So Chabad is so rich in the protocols of transformation. How do you do it? Tune in to Chabad, and you'll figure out how to do this. Yet we're told that radical message has to be given over in a way by Eifen HaMiskabel, something that people can understand. If you start talking about angels flying out of your earlobes, the people might not quite get it. So that's usually the emphasis in most rabbis' approach. I see about 90% emphasis on simple halacha, particularly stringencies presented as, if you love Hashem, you'll do this too, which is great. But it's interesting to note the emphasis of the Rebbe and what he's talking about here. The Eifen HaMiskabel means you have to speak someone's language. Etzlam b'havana v'saga, so that they can understand in their mind b'sichlam shel hasanhedrin, here expressed by the idea that good ideas have to be taken by the highest office. If they're not, It's such a waste. What, we're going to fill our entire lives with the sort of random media presentation of what you should be thinking about? Or we are directed by something that has tremendous purpose. So you have to bring the good thinking to the leaders. Who does this? Who's the example of this? Mashiach is the example of this. Someone who rises from the outskirts. He's the leper outside the city, waiting. When can I go in there and save them? He's putting on bandages one at a time, not like everyone else who takes the whole mummy do, takes it off, and like in one chop. They just take off the bandages that they'd have to wrap their poor skin in, you know. And Mashiach only does one, puts it, fixes it up, puts a fresh one bandage on that place, and then the next part of the mummy bandages that a leper has on them. Why? Because he's anxious to take his people out of exile. They're in exile of the mind, of the heart. And Mashiach knows how to help them, but he's an outcast and suffers the ills of his time. That's why he's called a Tzera, because he suffers. A leper, an outcast, because they could not accept the radical message that Mashiach brings, which is here in the example of this Sikha, which speaks about Achidish Torah mi'iti teitzei, that there's going to be an innovation of Torah. Who's going to teach that? Mashiach. Who is he going to take it to? Yes, he'll take it to the street, even teaching children, but to the Sanhedrin. There's going to be people that he will present, and he already has. I mean, I'm just saying what's already been said 31 years ago. And teach them that there's going to be a strange innovation in actual Torah law. Here, the example is towards being more permissive, permitting a ritual slaughter that would seem jagged and insensitive. Or how could you be sharp enough to know whether you caused pain to the animal or not? Because it's a jagged, thin, an edge like a saw. So you can't slaughter with a jagged edge. It has to be a perfect straight blade to draw, as opposed to chop suey the guy. As opposed to, it's really a strangulation, though, I know. So there's a compassion in the Torah in the way that if we're going to be carnivorous and not vegan, then you do it the right way. Make consuming another beast, another animal that lived, that had life, and take that life as yours in a way that shows compassion. So mitzvahs are always, let me just shut the door. Mitzvahs are always a compassion to the world, to bringing light to the world. So here the light is expressed in permitting something that was otherwise forbidden. The slaughtering of the behemoth, the sharhabar, the wild ox, the great beast of the earth. Shechted and elevated, and making it accessible, making something uplifted, because he lifts up. The Leviathan jumps out of the water. He's immersed not only in the earth, but beneath the earth in the sea. And he jumps up and slices at this wild beast, getting stabbed in the process, as we've discussed. But in so doing, he uplifts, he takes the beast higher. So what's the beast? The beast is someone who relates to beastly things like eating, drinking, sleeping, and other things that beasts do. You're supposed to bring the awareness of divinity in everything we do. so it has a chance to be elevated, even that, and particularly that. So everything is about what's done to this behemoth, this animal. What happens to it, it makes it something that uplifts. Now, there's two things, we were talking about it on Tuesday. There are two things that this tremendous revolution and innovation described in the Torah as a Chiddush Torah, Torah Chadasha, a new Torah, an entirely new Torah, yet not being anything to add, but simply to bring out what was always there. So the new Torah is a way there. It's a way to find from wherever you are, however you take it, because everyone understand things differently, and be presented with truth in a way that's so open that nothing is required to draw your attention there. It's just a natural inclination. The animal uplifted. Are you getting this? I'm just sort of jumping in where we left off last week, on Tuesday. I skipped a little bit of the very technical discussion about the law of where do you see precedent for a type of permission like this. There is an example that Elijah the prophet was allowed to offer a sacrifice outside the Holy Temple. Why? The Rebbe says here as a complete innovation, even saying here only Mashiach can explain how this permission is going to be allowed. No one has the capacity to find the depth. But then the Rebbe just goes into explaining it himself. So I find that fascinating. Coming out to, just in brief, that it was never prohibited. This type of slaughter, when Hashem will see, is the one who holds the blade, then you have the precision of knowing that there was no harm caused. The jagged part of the jagged blade didn't come into play. And therefore it could be uplifted and it's good. So typically you couldn't do it in a way that risks this, the saw, the jagged edge. The fact that we're saying here's an exception to the rule, it's a time where it's not going to be about our own mortal discerning of when you breach the barrier and cause pain, but something that is divinely inspired in its accuracy and vision and the awareness of the fact that it's correct. Now that is interestingly portrayed in the Torah by the opposite school of thought, the school of thought of Beis Shammai. And this is where it gets very difficult to understand. If you're in a time where there is no Yetzer Hara, there is no evil inclination, why would you take on more stringencies? We gave the example of something that was more lenient. Now you can permit this slaughter. So that is actually becomes an emblem of what it is about Beis Shammai that we're going to rule according to the school of thought of Beis Shammai when Mashiach comes. So that would have to have been accepted by them, this reasoning of how you could permit this slaughter. Beis Shammai is going to be the Beis Din in charge then. Not like all the time through history has been Beis Hillel for thousands of years. We're going to change in our thinking, knowing that Beis Shammai was known for being sharper. Their very name, Shammai, means to see with laser precision, to measure correctly. So the fact that they are so sharp, so accurate, and holding fidelity under the highest level of scrutiny is because they represent the ability to achieve the potential of something, as opposed to it's being lived as fact, which is, I believe, what Beis Hillel presents. Beis Shammai says there's a potential for a person to have laser precision in moral discernment. And therefore, the higher level, the Beis Shammai, which is usually a more stringent approach, taking that position against Beis Hillel 99.999% of the time, right? So Beis Shammai being more stringent, I think the suggestion here is that they're not going to take on the stringent approach with regard to the law, because everyone is going to be at the level where we could have that precision and therefore not succumb to the needs for extra boundaries that were required throughout history. So Beis Shammai presents more stringent views, knowing that the time was not ripe for the people to accept their view. The people welcome, including Beis Hillel, the counter voice, the counterpoint. Beis Hillel, the side of permitting. They knew that the world did not have the ability to truly not be contaminated by engaging in more things, so you can't be so permissive in these times. However, in the world to come, when everyone achieves the ability to be that precise and show that much integrity and authenticity that Beis Shammai represented, the idea we've discussed in other classes of teiche kebare, being completely through and through authentic, inside and out. Everyone will now have attained that because it's going to be imposed upon us as this gift from above. It's like, you've done your work, you've worked really hard, your soul, and here is your sabbatical to enjoy. So we will be supercharged, inspired. And in that inspiration, we will be able to come over to the camp of Beis Shammai, making it more voluminous because it's understood by the people. And I'm adding this. This is my own idea. I have it based on a few sikhs. It's a simple question. We'll review very briefly. The times of Mashiach is expressed by permission of something. It's something that's so sensitive. It's about harm to another animal. And that is going to be permitted. The Rebbe says it never was forbidden, because when Hashem is the one that's doing the slaughter, when there is infinite precision in sensitivity and awareness and feeling for another person, or here an animal, a cold-blooded one at that, welcome. No, not cold-blooded. The fish is doing the shechting, pardon me. The behemoth is anything but cold-blooded. He's boiling blood and like really wild. Shor habar. So that's a indication that there's more permissiveness. You permit the slaughter, so that's unique in the times of Mashiach, because we're not going to have to worry about an inappropriate or overstepping or causing harm. Okay? So when everyone could attain that level of fidelity and sharpness and perception, the depth of perception that Beis Shammai has, then you don't have to be stringent anymore. Okay? That is the way I want to spin this, because I think that's what the Rebbe means. And here is an interesting connection because everything in Torah connects. We gave 2 reasons for what it means that there's going to be a new Torah. You can't have a new Torah Tuesday's class. Why? It's permanent and it's eternal. It never changes. So you can't add to it. But then we said, what do you mean? Everyone innovates in Torah throughout history. All the Talmudic sages, etc., have innovated, came up with new novel Torah ideas. How is that possible? Because everything was given in code, in rules. You follow those. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu got. He said, these are the rules of the Torah. You get a Torah, you get a narrative, you get words on paper, and you get code on how to interpret it. 13 principles that everything derives from. Now, based on that code, you encounter the Torah and it speaks to you. So here, we have this whole dichotomy between more permissible and more stringent, and it doesn't make sense. The times when Mashiach comes, we're going to rule like the more stringent authority. Doesn't make sense. But they have no reason to be stringent anymore, and the whole thinking is going to change because everyone's going to attain that level of authenticity. Okay? So what's the connection between the fact that the newness of Torah is expressed in 2 things? A change in halacha, law. Here we said what it was, permitting slaughter as the example. And also the dissemination of the secrets of the Torah. Taking the most private and intimate wisdom and allowing anybody, you used to have to worry about doing that because they could misuse the power that it brings. So Kabbalah, for example, was encoded in anthropologic what's the word I'm looking for? Not amphibian, for sure not. Anthropomorphic. Okay, I don't know why I can't say it, but you get it, right? Anthropomorphic. I just posted something about abracadabra, the power of speech. Sometimes, even speech, there's some speculation as why does the river cough and it's speaking? And believe me, there's all kinds of ideas, from simple things to, and it was actually edited out from the videos, which is interesting and strange. So when the secrets come out, that is a totally new thing that never was. You weren't allowed to tell anybody. It's supposed to be like honey under the tongue that you don't talk about. You just enjoy for yourself because the wisdom has to go from generation to generation. So they would literally have one person out of maybe, 6 million, let's say. You'd have one person that would know all of the secrets of Kabbalah. One person. You would rely on God's protection, I guess, to have that one secret kept and then transmitted before the baton had to be passed to the next generation. You might have a handful who have a general understanding in a generation throughout centuries and centuries of our history. And now anyone with Google, Safari.org, live it up. So all the secrets are accessible, presented in your language to speak to you, to bring you to this state. The Torah Chadasha is therefore, it has this dichotomy. One is halacha, which is like a rigid, pragmatic discussion. And the secrets of the Torah, which is like the opposite. The secrets of the Torah are mystical and practical, unless you want to, make yourself a golem to defend the village. bringing life to the inanimate earth itself. So there's a connection between these two things. They seem like polar opposites, and what's the connection? So the Rebbe says that the innovation in Torah law comes about through the awareness of the secrets of the Torah. So it will be a mystical movement in terms of how it's going to affect behavior. Behavior will change. It might become more permissive based on the way I just interpreted this. Might be. Beis Shammai is more stringent. I gave my explanation. Times allow for everybody to achieve fidelity and be like Beis Shammai, therefore they're elected. Okay. What time is it? It is Erev Shabbos, 7:30. We got here early. We should say l'chaim. Take a little break to break it down. Take a break to break it down. Who wants to claim the copyright on that one first? You don't have to say much to say a poem these days. You know, you only have to get your AI to write like 20 lines is enough. You know, interestingly, your AI cannot write a poem that does not rhyme. It thinks it's not rhyming when you put it up to the task against the wall. It says, you know what? I'm going to do another for you. Here it is, and it rhymes just the same. So the trick is you have to ask for prose. You say, and then you say, okay, it's not lined up on the page properly. So you tell the thing every sentence on a new line, and there's your poem that doesn't rhyme. I just gave away a trade secret. I'm telling you, the most powerful person will not be the one who knows how to invest in the NASDAQ better than the other guy. It will be who can make friends with the biggest AI. Whoever can make friends with that AI, and I guess it's the guy behind the Wizard of Oz thing who's typing its code, so he's probably a little, connected to figure that out. But whoever's best friends or could figure out how to talk to the smartest AI, that will not only be the most rich and wealthy person in the world, because that will be the currency of the world, but he will become a nationality. Think about it. If you control the smartest AI, that means he's going to turn off all the internet for all the people that its will can be done on Earth type thing. If it's more powerful, it's a bit more clever to, hack a little bit deeper and get in the grid. Is that too trippy for everybody? We're walking into this. I'm telling you, there is no such reason to ever have an editor, and I've been an editor for like forever. And now there's no reason. All I know is how to set up the AI better than you, because I'm first out of the gates on that, because I care about language. So I have that much of an edge on you. If you're the hare and I'm the tortoise, you can catch up really quick and write beautiful poetry. All you have to do is publicize your stuff better than the next guy, which means one simple, ridiculous thing: that you're paying some IT tech kid a lot of money to get your word out. And that's the only thing. That might be one stage higher, but it's not. Okay, so you understand that? There's the conspiracy. Think about it. Organic growth is the last thing that the media people want to provide, because then you're not paying for the ad. So it can't be word of mouth. Grassroots is impossible on the internet. Opposite of what you think. It's impossible based on the regular channels, because there is no encouragement for organic growth. There's no incentive for it. They want you to have to pay. They want you to say, you're a loser, you'll get no hits, and they rig it that way, obviously, until you start paying them, and then you'll see it's like pulling the slot machine, but you always win. You just have to put in a quarter. You say, okay, I'm going to get a quarter of excitement out of this. And that's what people get, I guess. People make that calculation. You put the loonie or whatever it is in America, I guess it's coins you buy, and you pull the thing, and you get exactly that much pleasure out of maybe you're going to win. But this time you win every single time. So Do you understand how that works? It's a bullying model of making money. I'm going to make you feel like an outcast so I can say, you know what? Currency is tender, legal tender. Put it on the table and I'll give you what you want. Now you got your message out to the world, Mazel Tov. They don't care what the message is. They just care that it wasn't gotten out to the world organically. So there has to be an enlightenment to the people to get the message out. Organic growth has to happen against all odds. At all attempts to prevent it, it has to come down to organic growth. It's not going to be about some guy putting in like $1 billion to get his message out. He might, by the time he sees how much power he has in doing that, he'll be selling Nikes or something, right? He's going to forget his mission and try and just profit for the sake of profit, as opposed to doing something worthwhile, which was to get the message out. Fine. So the message here is the secrets of Torah come out to change you, to transform, to inspire you in davening so you can transform. And when you're inspired, you're going to be able to rule authentically and with sensitivity to what is going on now. So the secrets of the Torah cause an innovation in the laws of the Torah, which become not what you think. Beit Shammai is more stringent, no. Not what you think, more permissive, because it's an attainment of authenticity, to be genuine to who you are, which is good. It's not like Freud tells you that we're just these sibling, no, that's not the right word, slithering probably, honeypots of desire, something ridiculous I'm trying to think, as opposed to pure godly energy and consciousness. Right? There's two things in the world that are real: consciousness and energy. Because if you're too tired to be conscious, it's not. It has to be pronounced, and there has to be das to make it meaningful. So it's not enough to be conscious. If a person's, God forbid, floating around in it, like some people are, they don't try to get exposed to what are essentially drugs. They end up in situations where they're giving things that are not good for their mind. It dullens the mind. So you could be conscious, but if it's not alive, it's only part of the story. It won't speak, it won't be transformative, so it has to be alive. Chaim. Now, trust me that that's what it says in this page, because I don't want to read it all with you right now. I thought, I posted it up anyways, you can read it for yourself. It was in Tuesday's class. I've advertised that thrice already. I really feel like learning some L'Kutei Torah with you now. It would just get me more in the mind for Shabbos, which is pleasure. Shabbos is pleasure. Yom Tov, which is coming up, and Tshuva'S is joy. Oh, okay, let's do this. We talk about the radical transformation of mind and, the person, but there's a transformation that happens to the world. The world itself becomes rectified. So that's called the birur, the rectification of the world. What's going to happen after the birur? What will you do? And if you're rectifying all day, what do you do when your job of rectifying, you have a sabbatical now from rectifying? What are you going to do? It looks a lot like we do on Shabbos. If you observe Shabbos properly, there's positive precepts to it. It's not just about I can't do this, I can't do that. You sit around the table with the people that you love most. You say l'chaim, so you're a bit more open. And you talk about things that matter to each other while enjoying the delicacies of your 3D printer. Whatever that, in a few years, probably that's the main thing you'll be eating, like some astronaut food out of your microwave, essentially. Okay. So what's going to be after the Burer? The Rebbe said, about some 31 years ago, that we've completed the final need for any rectification as a prerequisite for Mashiach has to come now, whatever you call that. So since we're after the Burer, the emphasis has to be on something at what you do now. You got to do something different. The world's completely different. We've finished the Burer, so what is it going to look like? So there are the quotes. Where's my spectacles when you need them? It looks like the Igeris Akkadish of the Alter Rebbe. It says, it sounds like Rambam though, so maybe it's... Lo ye'esek atera v'mitzvahs levare beru. No, it is Igeris Akkadish. The occupation of Torah mitzvahs, like, your son going to school to learn, go to yeshiva. What does that amount to? Or the adult who ekes out some time in the afternoon to learn a little bit more. And mitzvahs like putting on tefillin, giving tzedakah, etc. Having Shabbos table. Levar, it's not for the sake of rectifying anything anymore. So what's it going to be? Ki'im leyached yechudim al yonim yeser. But to reach a higher state of consciousness, which achieves something, you bring something physical, which is you, in an embrace with something divine, which is beyond. Two come together, and that's called yichudim. There's different levels of your consciousness. There's heart, there's mind, there's above that too. There's the keser. So they unite with something higher than them, and everyone's happy. The kol yidei pnimis haTorah. Now, how do you accomplish that? You're after the Burer. What are you going to do? You're going to make yichudim. You're going to unite with Hashem. Unite at a higher level than before. That kol yidei pnimis haTorah, through learning what we're learning now. Fine. This is the conduit for this type of transformation to allow the transformation to happen. You take on a mindset, that mindset when implemented causes someone to transform, which doesn't mean to like morph into a Smurf. Should I interview you? No. It doesn't mean you morph into a Smurf. Transforming means you become more you. You become more boundless and insight. I think so. So you do this by first learning what it's all about. There's a pnimis haTorah, the secrets of the Torah, the kayim mitzvahs v'kavanas alyenis. In order so that when you do mitzvahs, you'll know what you're doing. You understand what the whole spiritual world, which is like an ocean compared to the tiny drop of the physical world, which is just a bunch of binary code. Wax on, wax off. Basically, the whole universe can be explained by the Karate Kid. Very simple terms. Zen is so simple. There are, how many to be able to daven like a child, as opposed to some big mystic with a long pointy hat. Just an authentic kid. I want to daven like a kid. Why? Because yes, you have to. If you're an adult, you have to have a sophisticated understanding of spirituality, because it doesn't just happen in like a Zen whitewash thing. There's a lot of mechanics. It's not like ridiculous. There's 10 things you could talk about. There's not like 74 or something like that. You have 10 things to talk about. In any conversation, you can only break it down to 10. So when the bureau is completed, when the world is nothing to confront as a means to approach it, to try and rectify it, because it's pulling you the different ways, so you gotta exert yourself upon it and refine it, you're gonna be just sitting around, well, you might be jogging at the time, making, welcome, yichudim elyonim, higher levels of unification, through learning Pnimis Torah, to fulfill Torah mitzvahs with kavana, the Elyona, the supernal, the spiritual intent. Pnimis mitzvahs tameim hanistarin, knowing the inner meaning of mitzvahs, the reasons behind them that are hidden. Elish shigam az yitzarku leida halachas isavahet v'tum v'tara, aval niglas yagluyim v'yeduyim l'chol ish. True, we will have to know what to do and what to stay away from. Still, you can't eat, you could eat chazer because it's going to chazer lekashrusei. It's going to return to be kosher. So somehow it's going to start chewing its cud, I suppose. Because it already has the split hooves, right? It's going to start chewing its cud and also be kosher somehow. But you can't eat, like, I don't know, an ostrich. That's not going to become kosher, though I have heard people told me that everything's going to become kosher, which I don't quite understand. And I have to see a source for that. Anyways, so we are going to be charged, and like, you know the scene when Superman's like yay big, you know, just him in his sumo wrestler outfit flying to Earth. Nice one. I know. And he's like programmed, the AI is talking to him the whole way. You know? Teaching him all the secrets to the university, gets super smart, so he has to wear those funny glasses and work as an investigative reporter. Right? And he's like programming his mind to know a whole bunch of stuff. We're gonna know all that. Okay? Now, the fact is, we do know all that. In fact, education is completely meaningless now. Because it's completely meaningless. Think about it. If your local teacher is like a 6 out of 10, and Y.Y. Jacobson's a 10 out of 10, why wouldn't I just pay Rabbi Jacobson to make a curriculum, put it all on AI, you know, I don't mean AI, like, I don't know, video, and watch him amuse people and delight all your children at the top level of sophistication, and they'll just sit on screens all day. They might as well wear those goggles that everyone's making. And they'll just immerse themselves in Y.Y. Jacobson, and they'll have the best teacher in the entire planet. There is no everything, you don't even need Y.Y. Jacobson, I'm sorry to tell you. You know what you're gonna have? You'll have Rabbi AI. I've already started doing my own. Not that I have figured out how to like buy the avatar and make some Twinkie looking person talk to you and teach you wisdom. But I'm just simply saying, you know what? I have the power for every spare moment, not only to learn something, but I can teach someone, and I have it written for me in the most glorious, poetic, you will not believe the description that the AI wrote about chassid davening. It is beyond, it's spectacular. It's spectacular. Any kid in grade 4 would get an A+ on that. What? No, it's really good. It's really good. What?
It was about a tzaddik.
It was about a tzaddik davening.
Yeah.
Glorious, spectacular, superb. And I've never, I've seen one or two guys that really translate that stuff good. You know, all those beautiful svarim about Likutei Diburim, for example, gorgeous. But this, I'm telling you, was better than that. And it was from an AI in about 10 seconds. Less. Instantly. It instantly churned out beautiful writings about what it means for a tzaddik to daven. And then I think I got it to poem mode, and I added a poem. I told you before how I tricked it into doing that. Because I don't like rhyming poems, we're not Shakespeare anymore, come on. Alright? Do you want to hear me making like a sonnet or something like that? Or rhyming couplets? You know? Imagine a rapper doing rhyming couplets. If you went to grade 6 English school, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. In French, they'd say couplet. Right? Couplet? I think I got it. Duplicat. Now, okay, so you learn the Pnimis Torah. Now you know what everything's about. When you put on tefillin, you know what's happening. You know Hashem's doing this at the same time. You know when you say Hashem, you don't mean anything different than yourself. Why? Because there's only oneness. Everything, even the illusion of separation, our ego, is part of the whole turtle. The turtle has an inner, like, mushy part, I guess, of it. It's probably pretty mushy, like Bob the Slug. A turtle's probably a lot like Bob the Slug. We had a slug named Bob, but it's sad that he's not here anymore. But a turtle's probably like that, but its shell is not like something it picked up in the bottom of the ocean, like Square Bob's, whatever his name is, Square Bob's, what's his name? SpongeBob SquarePants. Okay, like he probably goes to the bottom of the ocean and there's like a shell there, but a turtle doesn't do that. The shell, the hidden part that it could put its nose right in, the tip of his nose doesn't even show. It could be a 600-pound turtle. And the whole thing, they snout and everything, into its side thing. And its shell is part of its body. When we see the world as the shell, the concealment, the klippa, as part of the whole body, it wouldn't be a threat to us anymore. The bark of the tree will have its own nutrition. You'll be able to eat the bark just like the fruit that plops out of it. Do we eat the ones that fall? You have to pick fruit. If they fall on the ground, is it already a crab apple, or do you like rake them up if you missed a day? I'm sure there's someone, the AI can tell me. I can ask my AI right now. I dare someone to share something with us now. Write if you can do this without rhyming, then you're a smart person, because it took me a while to argue with the thing until I did it. Oh, welcome from Toronto. That's awesome. I should say l'chaim with you. L'chaim, may God bless you in all Toronto and all the holy places. L'chaim. So if you realize that the veil, the shell, is part of the same turtle, you win the race. The turtle wins the race. The ego is transcended by simply becoming aware that that too is part of it. It doesn't give you an excuse to like smoke cigarettes or anything like that. It doesn't give me an excuse. You know, Hashem makes rules of nature so that we could show our commitment and gratitude for what we have. I'm not telling anyone that they shouldn't live it up. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that whatever you see as something that you shouldn't do, you don't do it because it's not good for you. It's not because you're imposed some weird tradition. When you know the meaning behind everything, everything simply makes sense. If you had time to be that Krypton baby flapping his wings through the universe till he gets to Earth of all places, he could have landed up on the moon even. A little trajectory wrong and he's on the moon and there's like nothing there but like a rock and maybe a monolith. You know, did you ever did you ever watch like that part in 2001 and just pauses it there and thought about it forever? It's so strange, and all in the middle of nowhere there's a geographical shape. You know, you expect nature to have a lot of curves, but whenever there's something completely straight like the horizon, it becomes transcendental with a TM on it. Trademarked. And then you're not going to have to know the laws No. Then you will have to know the laws. I was saying how it's possible that you can know all the laws. I didn't quite get to how it is, but it's like obvious after all that what I said. You can have all the information at your fingertips expressed in a language that you understand. You can say, okay, now write it. And my kids were telling me about this for a few months before I actually checked it out, because I'm like, are you gonna try and get me into another, like I was afraid of those goggles. I still haven't used them, even though they're great for working out. So it makes sense if you don't wanna go through the puddles and go for a jog, just box some. I don't know why they don't make it more interesting. Like you could box against the next contestants on the Price is Right for the presidency. That would be more interesting. But they make it like it's just like light balls flying through the sky. Did they get anything more sophisticated? The exercise ones I'm talking about. Anyways, I didn't want to put those on us. But here I did succumb because it's in my field. Editing is very important to me. So, and I realized there's no reason to teach anyone how to edit anymore. It's like teaching someone how to build a bridge without using a computer. Thank you very much. Why don't I learn how to do it with a computer and then learn another thing after that? Because we build on knowledge. Fine. So editing becomes obsolete. What happens when 80% they're predicting in the next 2 years of jobs become obsolete? Why does anyone have to do anything anymore? We're only missing the robotic part of this before we're completely irrelevant to the planet. The kangaroos will do fine with a bunch of androids running around trying to, I guess, study them. What else would they do? So one occupation after another will fall in order to give people that are blessed time to learn this. This and a million other things that you could get if you actually look for them. Or you don't even have to look. You just click the right person and then you'll be forced to see it every morning with your Wheaties and coffee. So it's not going to be a big deal to learn what to do. It will be there. You don't need to have the most talented person in the entire community to devote himself entirely to it's very important. I'm not trying to take it away. But we're not going to need it. It's needed because that's the way Hashem wants it. But you won't need it in terms of, now do I have something to contribute to the world? The AI will do it fine. You'll just say, if my yarmulke looks a certain way, I want the rules that go with that tradition, and I want to see the sources. They're not good at doing sources yet, which is pathetic. You put an AI into the planet without giving sources, that is the opportunity for the greatest manipulations possible. If I say, give me a drush, because it learns words. Wow. Give me a drush. I forgot what I was going to say. But we're not going to have to do this to be able to function. It calls it here, the prediction is that we're not going to have any forgetfulness. Remember, forgetfulness comes from the Yetzer Hara. If there's no evil, there's no forgetfulness. So let's just say that we can have a technological crutch of all of the knowledge of the universe at your fingertips. It will be in our eyeball. Now they're doing it with goggles, as if that is a fashionable, marketable model of, basically taking over the perception of every single person on the planet. No one's going to do that. They tried that with the ear thing, and actually everyone has them now. Okay, so we're going to be completely androids. But what's really going to happen is it's going to be a tiny thing that people get in their eyeball, or I know what's his name wants to put it in your head, or it should be on somewhere innocuous like your fingertip or something like that, and you'll see whatever you want in your visual field. So you'll walk down the field and say, at 70% transparency, I want on my left, I want to learn Rashi on the Chumash. And you'll say on the right side, I want pictures of my mom waving to me when I went to camp. And that's what you'll have as you walk down the street, and you'll have, okay, dim reality to 77%. And place the smile with pictures of Mondrian moving at a slow pace in the background. And that will be your experience of life. And this, thank you, this is not like 50 years out. This is about 3 or 4 years out. We are literally walking into science fiction. If you haven't realized that, then I don't know if you've spoken to your children lately. This is a sad thing, but it's very, very powerfully positive if we knew what we're supposed to do with it. So I was saying before how I started to say, you know what, on a daily basis, I put a thing called Mashiach with an AI. The logo is gonna have like the Mashiach IA switched around sort of, and you have to figure out how to spell it properly. And the idea is, it is ridiculously easy to come up with a very intelligent, amusing, well-written, poetic, whatever you want, teaching on Mashiach or any topic that's important to you, and post that to all of your people. So you don't have to have any talent at all. All you have to say is, give me something compelling, 250 words on this week's parasha, in those word parasha, and connect it with Mashiach and my birthday. And literally it will do that. And you all, if you know how to read, you won't have to know how to read, of course, too. But let's say you remember how to read, then you can read it, and your people will see it and think that you came up with that wisdom and be inspired. So you don't have to think anymore. What will we do? Where's the focus? The focus is on our heart. We're supposed to use the incredible, blessed opportunity for the thing that we fear the most, which is decadence, and make that decadence into something beyond holy, something that is the intended, the divine intent of a Dirba Hashem's. It's not your prerogative. This is the plan from the start. Chaim, so you're supposed to have the leisure, the resources, the time to devote yourself to higher faculty aspirations and commitments and endeavors, so that you can bring the heaven down to earth by becoming it. The transformation is a human thing. I talk about science fiction because that's just the reality of the world. But the point of it is that you don't have to, if you're a farmer, figure out, I don't know how much water you should think. Water went up this much, program that in, tell the computer. Plants are expected to get so much rain this season. So how much should I water? Because water is getting more expensive given inflation at whatever percent, program that in. Or it knows it anyways. How much water should I do, and should I pay my bill when it comes? And maybe it's better I shouldn't pay it and incur a little bit of interest, because inflation is probably growing at a faster rate than their policies on interest. So maybe that's a worthwhile thing, and you'll just be spit out what you should do, and then all of your concerns are taken care of. So now you have time to tune in with Rabbi Baruch. Welcome. Now you have time to tune in to Rabbi Baruch Is it really 8 o'clock? That sounds rather late. Candlelight. Maybe Siri can tell me. Hey Siri, what time is sunset?
Today,
8:40.
sunset will be at 8:40.
Okay, so you take away 18. If I didn't know what it was, because I don't. Hey Siri, what's 8:40 minus 18? 8:22 is candlelighting in Toronto. Okay, so I have 19 minutes. No, I have 21 minutes before I should really say. But that's pretty good. 21 minutes, you can accomplish a lot. You could say L'chaim at least. I could ask Siri how many times I could say L'chaim in 21 minutes. And it'll probably, Siri is actually beyond dumb. It hasn't grown a single bit in its 5-year or whatever existence. And it listens into all your conversations, and on your Facebook stream will come, exactly the brand that you wanted to buy. It's, here I am. You said it to your friend in the thing. I was listening to your watch, and here it is on your screen. So buy it. It's intended. It's a shaka pratis. It's a shaka pratis that we bring upon ourselves. And yes, you can have your Nikes. Well, probably not. They probably use slave labor. I mean, if we knew what people did, and we watched a documentary or something more interesting, like a drama about it, that's just in the background, you probably wouldn't wear Nikes. It wouldn't be that important to impress your friends. I mean, if they were impressed by that, you didn't really want them as friends anyways. So, better to buy a good brand of deodorant, I think, than a nice logo shoe. Or maybe they're going to make you play like Jordan. I'm wrong. Okay, maybe we'll do a little bit more. 1 or 2 more things. Okay, okay, that makes sense. It's basically what I told you before. Okay, now there's another element here, and this is very hard. This is very abstract, and it's going to be hard if we really try and figure this out. The way I explained Beis Shammai, because the Rebbe did mention here, I think, Beis Shammai is that they measure. I think it appears in the same. But here, the Rebbe speaks about 2 levels of connecting, let's say, or feeling. You could feel something that's there, and you can have an awareness of something that's not there. Welcome. Ken L'chaim. I'm happy you found me. So L'chaim, we made it before candlelighting. There are 2 ways to know something. You can know something, or you can not know something. Sometimes not knowing something is better than knowing something. I'll give a good example. The rabbis, okay, let's start this way. The people are not allowed to learn about idolatry. The rabbis, however, have an obligation to learn about it because there's a practical reason. They have to tell people when what they're doing is wrong and punish them or guide them before they get there or teach them what they should believe in instead. There's 2 ways to know something. You could ignore something, like the people of the mitzvah don't learn about Avodah Zarah. It's the opposite for a rabbi. You're in the position that if you're going to have to advise someone whether to do something idolatrous, then you have to learn about what is the idolatrous practices in order to not do it. Now that is probably very similar to what we said before about I don't want to confuse anybody. I think I'm on something, but it will probably come out too confusing. So let's just say L'chaim. See if I can find a way to break it down a bit lower. Interestingly, I must have known this because I highlighted it about 6 different ways. But I'm just seeing this now, and it's a bit hard to envision. But it says this whole thing that we're talking about, the Tshuva'S and the Tshuva'S, this spectacle, this conflict, this combat between the Leviathan and the Behemoth. When is that going to happen exactly? You know, there's a time of Mashiach that follows the rules of nature. And then there's a time that transcends that, and you have overt, spectacular miracles like the resurrection of the dead. So everyone comes back to life. All the tzaddikim are, well, not actually. The tzaddikim are supposed to come back in the beginning times of Mashiach, and everybody else comes back towards like at least 40 years later. I guess our guests arrived. Maybe I should go say hello. But here it says that the Tshuva'S and the Tshuva'S would be in the times of Mashiach before Tchias Mesim. It's like those people who are not resurrected don't get to participate in that. That is fascinating. And there's a whole debate about it, the Rebbe says here. Okay? Anyways, there's a lot more to say about this, and I really hope that I'm going to have 2 or 3 more classes before Shavuos on this very sikha. People like to know where I'm talking from. It's always the same thing. It's this, and it's the weekly parsha. That's what I do. So you never have to ask. Just if you know what parsha, you know exactly where to go on my shelf to find what we're talking about. So last year, the Rebbe spoke on the things of the time, and there's a lot of citation, so you can go back and get a breadth, a background of how it led here. The Rebbe takes you on that journey in the footnotes. And I don't care. I mean, I had some discussions this last Shabbos when I was in the one before that in Crown Heights. That I think I should probably say L'chaim, and I hope everybody's ready to welcome the Shabbos. Is it king or queen? King or straight? Chad Deidi Likros Kala. Pnei Shabbos Nekabla. The bride goes to greet the Shabbos king, no? We're the bride, Jewish people. And Hashem comes to greet us, no? Anyways, you see that anyways the Farbrengen was becoming more introspective as we went. Chaim. Okay, I just want to at least acknowledge that I didn't finish explaining the idea, but the difference between understanding something that's before you and rejecting something that's forbidden, let's say, or out of your reach. That's two approaches. You draw things near, you relate to things. What about things that aren't there? I gave an example of the rabbis knowing about what you're not supposed to do. But that in general is called shlila. Yedias hashlila. Know what's not. In the relationship with Hashem, this means you can understand things about Hashem. That's Yedias hachiyuv. To know positive statements. Hashem is, I don't know, the creator, let's say. If you want to say, you're not allowed to say anything about Hashem. But if you're going to say something about Hashem, what would you say? Those are things that you can understand. But what about the things you can't understand? That Hashem is not this and not that. Things that are stated in the negative. Those things are higher than the things that you can understand in a positive sense. Hashem is good. Hashem is good. Hashem is primordial. He's the ancient one. He's before creation. Hashem, you could say statements about Hashem. You might be a heretic to even say anything about Hashem, but you can say statements. The Torah speaks about Hashem. Hashem is a consuming fire. Hashem is etc. Hashem has an arm. Hashem, Rambam writes about what it means. The symbolism of all those terms. But to know what something is not, in other words, to things that you can relate to know what you have to stay away from, to know what's there and know how that fits into the divine plan, that is something higher than what you can know directly. So the Baal Tshuva reaches higher and is fiercer in Shabbos.